Essays by Seneca the Younger, Volume 2. On Anger, on Leisure, on Clemency. Read by James Cameron Stewart. 8. The best plan is to reject straightway the first incentives to anger, to resist its very beginnings, and to take care not to be betrayed into it. For if once it begins to carry us away, it is hard to get back again into a healthy condition, because reason goes for nothing when once passion has been admitted to the mind, and has by our own free will been given a certain authority. It will for the future do as much as it chooses, not only as much as you will allow it. The enemy, I repeat, must be met and driven back at the outermost frontier line. For when he has once entered the city and passed its gates, he will not allow his prisoners to set bounds to his victory. The mind does not stand apart and view its passions from without, so as not to permit them to advance further than they ought, but it is itself changed into a passion, and is therefore unable to check what once was useful and wholesome strength, now that it has become degenerate and misapplied. For passion and reason, as I said before, have not distinct and separate provinces, but consist of the changes of the mind itself, for better or for worse. How then can reason recover itself when it is conquered and held down by vices, when it has given way to anger? Or how can it extricate itself from a confused mixture, the greater part of which consists of the lower qualities? But, argues our adversary, some men, when in anger, control themselves. Do they so far control themselves that they do nothing which anger dictates, or somewhat? If they do nothing thereof, it becomes evident that anger is not essential to the conduct of affairs, although your sect advocated it as possessing greater strength than reason. Finally, I ask, is anger stronger or weaker than reason? If stronger, how can reason impose any check upon it, since it is only the less powerful that obey? If weaker, then reason is competent to effect its ends without anger, and does not need the help of a less powerful quality. But some angry men remain consistent and control themselves. When do they do so? It is when their anger is disappearing and leaving them of its own accord, not when it was red hot, for then it was more powerful than they. What then? Do not men, even in the height of their anger, sometimes let their enemies go whole and unhurt, and refrain from injuring them? They do. But when do they do so? It is when one passion overpowers another, and either fear or greed gets the upper hand for a while. On such occasions, it is not thanks to reason that anger is stilled, but owing to an untrustworthy and fleeting truce between the passions. 9. In the next place, anger has nothing useful in itself, and does not rouse up the mind to warlike deeds. For a virtue, being self-sufficient, never needs the assistance of a vice. Whenever it needs an impetuous effort, it does not become angry, but rises to the occasion, and excites or soothes itself as far as it deems requisite, just as the machines which hurl darts may be twisted to a greater or lesser degree of tension at the manager's pleasure. Anger, says Aristotle, is necessary, nor can any fight be won without it unless it fills the mind and kindles up the spirit. It must, however, be made use of, not as a general, but as a soldier. Now, this is untrue, for if it listens to reason and follows whither reason leads, it is no longer anger, whose characteristic is obstinacy. If, again, it is disobedient, and will not be quiet when ordered, but is carried away by its own wilful and headstrong spirit, it is then as useless an aid to the mind as a soldier who disregards the sounding of the retreat would be to a general. If, therefore, anger allows limits to be imposed upon it, it must be called by some other name and ceases to be anger, which I understand to be unbridled and unmanageable.